Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who haven't been here before, welcome, and if you're returning, welcome back. My name's Rich. I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just search for the Hard Compound on any of those, and you'll find us. We put out generally 3 articles. Morning, lunchtime, and evening here in the UK, mainly on the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we cover everything from single seaters, from F1 and IndyCar, to the feeder series, to touring cars, to rallying, bikes, NASCAR, and anything else we can shake a stick at. These are in the form of race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, breaking news, some fancy car liveries and bike liveries if we like them. Birthdays and all that good stuff. We just share a love of motorsport. That's why we're here. So come and give us a follow, and you will also notice that we do live video interviews such as this one right now. And just like this one right now, we are these are broadcasted on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. And they're automatically saved on Facebook in the video section, on YouTube in the live section, so you can watch them back at your leisure. And we're also in the process of putting the audio onto a podcast provider, so you can download them and listen to them. And you can fast forward through this bit if you like. We've had some fantastic guests from across the motorsport spectrum. We've had the honour and the privilege of speaking with Mr. Mario Andretti, with Mr. Jackie Ickx, John Watson, Hans Stuck, Chip Ganassi. In the last few weeks, we've had Joseph Loke, we've had Gianmaria Bruni, Takuma Sato, Jack Aitken, Callum Eilert, Malcolm Wilson, and we've also spoken to the likes of Mr. Stefan Johansson, over David Brabham, Ari Landijk, Danny Sullivan, Mika Salo, Carl Wendlinger, Emanuele Pirro, Derek Warwick, etc., etc. We've been very fortunate to have some wonderful guests. But if you're tuning in tonight, you might like your touring cars. We've had a lot of those guests as well. From guys such as Steve Soper, Rob Gravitt, John Cleland, Carl Jones, Frank Sittner, Graham Good, up to the current crop. And we've spoken with a lot of the grid. And we've also spoken with some drivers from Accelerate Motorsport, which leads us on nicely to this evening. We've spoken with Tom Chilton, Nick Housted, and Ronan Pearson, and we've spoken with team owner Justina Williams. So do go and check them out, but don't do it just yet, because we have got one of their newest additions to their squad. He's in the Mini Challenge JCW class this year in support of the BTCC. And we're going to bring him in right now. So join me in extending a very warm welcome to Dominic Wheatley.
Evening, everybody. Evening, Rich.
Man himself. Dom, how are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah. How are you, Rich?
Well, I'm all right. Busy day, but we've got there in the end. Not as busy as yours, because you've been at Croft, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah. So we're kind of in that period of lots of pre-season testing, lots going on. So it all happens behind the scenes, but yeah, we've got our first round end of April. So yeah, March, early April. That's kind of where you start to turn up at race tracks just for test days, and you start to see a few other people from the same grid that you're going, all right, okay, they're doing it this year, right? You know, you can see who's doing what and which tracks they're kind of focusing on and whatnot. So yeah, lots going on in the background at the minute, but
yeah,
looking forward to round one. To be fair, we already done a test day at Donington,
okay,
couple of weeks ago, and yeah, that's I like that track, so I'm looking forward to end of April, get back there for to kick off this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place to start the season. Fantastic circuit. Just before we get into all the stuff we're going to talk about, I just want to say hello to everyone in the comment section. If you have any comments or questions, pop them in. We should see them live if the technology is working. We should see them in real time, and we'll try and work them in. Or if you want to have a chat amongst yourselves, then you can do that as well. Dom, thank you for sparing your evening to come and have a chat. We've been meaning to do this for a while, haven't we? We mentioned it at Snetterton last year, and things have kept coming up and moving and shifting and things like that. So we finally managed to get this pinned down, and it's tied in with some good news for you, which we're going to go into in full detail later. But yeah. Congratulations on joining Accelerate. That's probably the biggest name on the grid. No disrespect to anyone else.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, they've got quite a big profile there in the touring cars. So yeah, naturally they've also been around, the minis for, well, as long as I can remember, and just pretty much all I've done for 9 years is minis. So yeah, they're a huge team in terms of their kind of pedigree, but also, like you said, everyone knows of Accelerate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the BTCC, which we'll touch on later, but they've made some pretty rapid rises there as well. And if that can translate to back into the minis, then you and your teammates are in a very good spot. So we'll see. But as I said, we'll come to that shortly. As we always do, though, I guess the best place to start is right at the start. You're obviously based up in the northeast, up in Hartlepool. Not the first place you think of when you think of motorsport. I hope you don't mind me saying. Where did the interest in motorsport come from, and when did you first start thinking about having a go yourself?
Yeah, well, Hartlepool, you're right. I don't think it springs to mind for many things. I think apart from hanging of monkeys. I think that's what
I wasn't
normally
going to
comes
mention
to
monkey
mind when
hanging,
people
but yeah.
talk about Hartlepool. But and if anybody doesn't know what that is, I'll let you go and Google that. But
that is worth 10 minutes of your life. That is a good Google.
But yeah, no, really the kind of involvement in motorsport came from my dad, who when he was 17 decided that he was going to kind of use one of his first pay packets to go and buy a kart. And he strapped it to the roof of his Mini and he went to the local track, him and his uncle. And he started getting into karting that way. And then, how these kind of things move on. Did a bit of this, did a bit of that, got into stock cars, got into rallycross. And he did rallycross for a lot of years. And it got to, I can't remember, 2004, 2003, 2004, when I was 10. And one of my dad's mates who also raced in rallycross, he got his son into karting, and my dad thought, oh, that looks good. Yeah, well, maybe, in fact, maybe I could get my daughter into racing. So my sister, who was at the time about 13, she was going to be the racer in the family.
Right.
And we went along to Warden Law which is the car track up at Sunderland. Great track, by the way. If anybody ever in the Northeast is looking for a good car track to go to, go Warden Law. And and we go there for the kind of national car. I think it was Super One that had came up to Warden Law that year. And we went along to, let's see how we can get involved. And went there and kind of went, oh, hang on, 13. Well, that puts you kind of in these senior classes, or the senior size of karts, with the restrictors in, and we're going, oh, that looks like we've actually came to the party a bit late, So that was it. It then went, well, Dom's 3 years younger. He's 10. That's just about right to get into kind of cadets. So that was it. We bought a trolley chassis. So, like all the chassis now, they're all named after, every F1 driver has their own kart chassis that they sell. So at the time, it was Jarno Trulli.
Yes.
And so I got a trolley chassis, bought it off, again, the friends that had got in a karting. Well, they were moving up to the senior class. So we bought their cadet card off them. So this trolley kart, it didn't last long. One evening session at Warden Law when I was practicing, I think I managed to put it off into a barrier and bend the chassis pretty early on, which wasn't a good start. But that was it. That was it. We got our kind of kart, did a lot of karting at Warden Law. The rule was I wasn't allowed to enter a race until I wouldn't be lapped. So my dad was, I don't want you getting involved in ruining someone else's race win. So at the time it was like a 1 minute lap time round Warden Law in a cadet. So I had to get within 6 seconds of the leaders, so that over a 10 lap race they wouldn't overtake me. And that was it. So I spent a couple of months just going up there on a Wednesday night and bashing around and kind of learning all about it. Right, we were brand new to, since my dad had karted, there weren't, they were totally different. There weren't side pods on the cart or anything like that when my dad raced. Now they were, kind of what a cart looks like now. And we did that bit of kind of practicing up in Warden Law, and then pretty much straight away, again, my dad was obviously very easily swayed by our friends because they said, "Well, we're going to go do the national series. We're going to go do." At the time, it was Little Green Man, the LGM Championship in WTPs. We're going to go do that. Why don't you come along? And at that point, I'd done half a dozen kind of local races in the winter series, and no, that's it. We're entering. And that first year, I think we did something like 45 weekends of racing. We were just constantly
having
away.
only done
a
bit of Warden Law.
Just a bit of Warden Law. We got into it, went, all right, yeah, we're liking this. Then, yeah, we were kind of, like I said, I think actually that first year, that 45 weekends was because my dad was also trying to still rallycross.
Right.
So 7 of them were his race weekends. The rest were, right, well, we better get out in the cart. If we're going to do the national championship, we've turned up late. We've turned up kind of inexperienced. We just need track time. So let's just get out there as much as we can, whatever we can do. And that was it. So really we did that for 3 years, I think, from 10 until I was 13, and then off we went up into the senior classes, and but that's how we kind of got into it. Was I wasn't going to be the driver in the family. It was going to be my sister, and we kind of realized we'd probably should have got a time machine if we wanted to do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's been sitting in the back of my head since you mentioned that is, how did your sister feel about it? Was she just like, oh, all right then?
Well, to be fair, I think initially it wasn't such an issue. She wasn't that bothered, or as a 10-year-old, I wasn't that in tune with my sister's feelings, so
right.
I didn't notice. But yeah, later on when I moved to Minimax, the next class up, so that's 3 years in. My dad said, right, I'll get a cart for your sister, and we'll get her a cart, and you can have your chance at cart, because at that point she was saying, I think I could do this. It's how hard can it be? And to be fair, she had a really good go at it. She'd spent 3 years traipsed around kart tracks, listening to my dad constantly telling me what I was doing wrong. She'd actually picked up a good chunk of it. So she gets in the cart, and all of a sudden
she was like sitting there quietly, just listening in, going, right, don't do that. Don't do that.
That's how you do it, right? It was all a big plot. I'm sure she had that in mind when in the years leading up to that. But she went out then, like most people, you go out there and you might start at the back, and you build a bit of racecraft as you move up through the grid, and then by the time you get to the front of the grid, you're not just quick lap times, but you're also a more honed driver overall. Well, she got in the cart, and her lap times were great straight away. She was kind of straight into the mid pack, but had never done any racing and was kind of like a magnet for incidents. So I think in one season she was involved in 3 red flags and 1 hospital ride to 1 ambulance ride to hospital. And although my dad was like, "Hey, you're doing great. Like, kind of, do you want to do another season and all that?" She went, "No, I've got it out of my system now. Thanks, but I think it's best for everyone before I do something more severe if we just call it there." And that was it. So that was her kind of one taste at it after it looked like she was gonna, be the racer. But
decided to step back. When they're thinking about making a red flag award, it's kind of No, fair enough. But just give it a go. Absolutely, good stuff.
Well, you can't knock her for the commitment to it. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it right, and didn't mess around. It was straight in there, kind of in at the deep end. It's big respect for that.
Yeah, proper job. It's like with anything in life. If you're going to do it proper.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've got a comment. Question here from Mark Perks. We'll come to that. Mark, good evening. And so I just want to say hello to Kales Cole in the comments. Kales is she's been doing F1000, and she said, "Great to see Dominic on the live. Met him once when he driver coached Kale's partner in Graves. Lovely chap. There you go. So yeah, happy days." So,
all right, yeah.
So folks, do go and check Kale's out on across social media. Kale's Cole Racing, based out in Ireland. She's going places. Big fan of hers, and she's been on here for a chat. So she can't be all bad. I've just got some of your like little progressive notes here through cards, which I know kind of blindsided you when I sent them to you. But
I'd forgot half of them, honestly. But
nerd. Nerd here. So was it 2009? You went up to the Super One National Road Tax. Then the following season, you improved sort of 7 places that year. So there was progression there in the same series. And then 2011, Trent Valley Kart Club. That was your final season in karting. Now I'm going to hold my hands up here. I've tried to do some digging and research and whatnot here. I can't find anything on you. Between 2011 and 2015, 16 kind of time. So if you've done some racing, this is your opportunity to make me look a bit daft. Or did you step back?
Yeah, so we did a bit of karting, like you say, all the way up to 2011. 2011 was kind of the big year. We had to make a decision that year because I was turning I was turning 17, and kind of the next season would also be the year that I'd be going off to uni if I wanted to go off to uni. So on one side, we'd had quite a good year in 2011. A few of my years in karting, like I say, like Minimax, when I was in Minimax, we were just running as privateers, my sister and me. Then we went to Junior Max. We tried a few things, but kind of struggled to find our place. And then in 2011, we had a really good season, a few bad rounds. I think that was the year in Kartmasters. I got kind of spun out in the first round, in the first lap, and that year I think I can't remember who it was. I can't remember who was world champion at the time, but I remember there was the world champion and Ed Brand, who I think was British champion at the time. Us three we were nose to tail. Someone came in behind. We all scattered out like skittles, all spun, got going again. And it was one of those, we kind of raced through the pack in the 20 laps, and we both, we all finished in kind of 5th, 7th, and 10th. And I think the world champion came 10th, and I remember that because I was like, yeah, not so good, is he? Is he really world champion? Should I get that title now that I've kind of beat him in one race? And that was, but it was the year where we really had some really good pace, and we thought, man, if we could just hook a season together, we could really kind of challenge for a championship. And the team at the time was saying, well, look, if you want to do that, and you've got the pace, why don't we go out to Europe, do a European year? Like we'll and then if you can qualify in the Europeans, you can go do the Worlds, and that's where you get kind of noticed and whatnot.
Like, it's always good. It's always good when people mention about karting in Europe, because we had like Terry Fullerton on here, who is like the man with karting. He's like legend, raced with Ayrton Senna and all that. And just recently we had like Callum Arlott and Jack Aitken and these guys, and they all said that going out and racing in Europe, they said they weren't really that keen on it to begin with, but when they did it, they were like, wow, it just completely different style of racing, and it really helped them. So obviously the European karting scene is
and
different.
At the time, I was racing on probably a chassis that most people would say didn't really work in the UK that well, as CRG, but was great over in Europe. Okay. A lot of people over in Europe ran Intrepids or CRGs, where in the UK, people ran Tony karts, which had a softer chassis, kind of suited our colder weather a bit better. So we were kind of there going, should we go off and do that? But like it was really expensive. It basically, for 7 extra rounds, you needed to basically double your budget. Wow. So we're going, well, hang on, we're doing like 20 races a season in the UK. To do an extra 7, we have to double our budget. That's a lot of expense, and
for potentially not much more back.
Yeah, and we're going, right, so either we commit to this, or and then what does that mean for you kind of going off to uni and doing all that? So in the end, we said, right, no, let's just focus on university. So that's what I did. I went off to university, did mechanical engineering at Nottingham. And actually, there was some racing that you've missed, but I'll let
Oh,
you off for it
well,
because
you're going to drop me in it. Go for it.
if you'd found it, I'd have been amazed that anyone would have thought about it.
That's all right.
The British University Karting Championship, the
Yeah, I
BUKC.
didn't. No.
So you might have heard of there's like an arrive and drive kart championship, Club 100.
Yeah.
And they would turn up, and all the universities would have a kart team, and you'd get in these kind of arrive and drive, kind of somewhere between a hire kart and like an owner kart,
Right.
and yeah, you'd have a team of kind of four, and you'd do an endurance race, a sprint race, and it was a great series. So for 3 years we did that, and I ended up captain. And I I remember the first time I went along, I was like, well, look, I've done national karting, I've been right at the front, picking tents between me and national champions and all that. Like, this is this could be a bit embarrassing if I turn up and just kind of drive away from everyone.
Smoke everyone.
What I
Yeah.
also forgot though was that there were also a lot of other karters like me who went off to university. So I turn up and all of a sudden I'm going, I go out for my first qualifying, come in and they go, yeah, you're seventh. Seventh? Well, who's the sixth that I fast? Oh, right. Hang on. I recognize his name. I recognize his. Oh, okay. Okay. Right. This is a lot more competitive than I thought. And it was fantastic. In fact, you mentioned Emanuele Pirro that's been
Hmm.
um, on the hard compound. Chris Pirro, his son, was at Nottingham and he raced in our car team. So,
Wow.
um, so yeah, it's a kind of like a small world, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who Emanuele was. So like met this guy. Oh, this is Chris. Hey, his dad's an XF1 driver. Oh, right. Didn't know.
Yeah.
And I thought, but he'll be good in a kart. And then like he was good in a kart, but you have these preconceived ideas of right, XF1 driver, son of an XF. Oh, he'll be,
He's
the
going to be the best.
he'll be like a mini Schumacher kind of thing. And but yeah, his dad had kind of went, probably don't try and get a career in motorsport. There's not good money in it. So
Yeah.
that's why he came off to university to do a degree in engineering again. And I
Okay.
think he's Guan Yu Zhou's race engineer now in
Yeah.
F1. So
Yeah.
it's a small world. It's yeah, so many kind of different paths that overlap. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that was my bit of
And you've
casting
also
that I
just
did at uni.
illustrated how old I am. You said you hadn't heard of Pirro. I was like, thank you.
Yeah,
Cheers,
sorry.
man.
Yeah. Maybe that just shows I didn't kind of read up enough in motorsport history, but
Yeah.
it was like, yeah. Then I heard, oh wow, yeah, he seems to do quite well at Le Mans actually, and yeah,
All right.
that's really where he gets his kicks.
Yeah, absolutely. And just well on him, he's a lovely bloke. He's involved with
Mm.
McLaren, isn't he, as well? And
Yeah.
driver coaching Bianca Bustamante, I think, and he's doing all kinds of other stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he's leading their
lovely chap.
the junior kind of
Mm.
academy stuff, isn't he? Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, he's a lovely chap. So if ever anyone is at Goodwood and they see Emanuele Pirro walking around, go and have a chat to him because he's brilliant. He's
Oh,
really
yeah,
great.
definitely. Yeah.
And he sent me a very nice signed fade thing. So.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, so well, I'm kind of glad that was the racing that you did because there's no way I would have found that. But I mean, it obviously kept your eye in whilst you were doing your studies.
Yeah.
Um, when you finished uni, and I guess you always wanted to go back racing if you could. I mean, were you looking at maybe going into the karts because full adult karting
Mm.
situation, or were you thinking cars? I want a roof.
You know what? Actually, the thing that did it was again my dad that got me back into this was that while I was offered karting, obviously, like I say, we were spending 20, 30 weekends a year away racing. We finished karting, and all of a sudden, he had a lot more spare time on his hands. So, all the jobs he'd been promising my mum that he'd do around the house, sort the garden out, do that extension, sort the bathroom out, and needed a new drive. He did that in like what he'd been promising for 10 years to do, and within 6 months he'd done it. We thought, oh, what do people do now?
Yeah,
What's these weekends for? You know, like, and that was it.
It's like the list of to do stuff had gone.
Yeah. It was like, yeah, what's yeah, why do people have these 2 days off at the end of a week if it's not for motorsport? Like, I don't get it. So he, but again, the same family friend who had got us in a karting, well, he'd gone off to do race legends up at Knockhill. So
Brilliant.
my dad said, "Oh well, we'll go up there. We'll support him." And in the first weekend, he went to just go watch. He was walking down the paddock, saw the Scottish minis, got chatting to a team. Hey, this looks good. I love the racing, you know. And they said, "Oh well, you know." He started talking about, "Well, I've done a bit of racing myself." This and that. And they said, "Well, this car here, this is the guy that's hired it. He can't do the last couple of rounds. Would you kind of fancy going?" Yeah, sure, yeah. Sign me up. So that was
It
it.
happened that quickly.
Yep, within
Wow.
from the week before going, oh well, yeah, we'll go up and see our friends race. To yeah, right. I've signed up to do the last few rounds of the Scottish Minis.
Wow. Because
So
that's a Cooper, isn't it?
yeah, so it's just it's very similar to the British series, but just they run on like a cut slick. The suspension's just a different brand, but there's not much to convert a Scottish Mini to a British Mini. So
Okay.
yeah, he goes up and does the last couple of rounds, and I said, "Well, I'll come up and I'll try and do a bit of driver coaching with you," you know, because he'd only ever done rallycross, 3 laps, kind of wild fast. He had a car that did 0 to 60 in 2.9 seconds, a Metro with a Judd touring car engine in the front of it, and
What?
this was in the 90s. Had an Italian sequential box when sequential boxes weren't that
Yeah.
common. So, and it was this rapid thing. But at the time, you could have like tire warmers and everything. So it was like a bullet. So
Crazy.
he'd gone from that to, right, now I'm going to race a 100 horsepower Cooper around a really windy track, all tarmac, and I've got 10 laps, right? And he really struggled with the idea that you didn't have to be leading going into turn one, even if you started 10th. And there was
Right.
there was a few kind of, let's just calm it down, shall we? You know, and then
Kamikaze moments.
yeah. Kind of, yeah. It just goes to show the different kind of aspects of that worked really well. You know, he was British champion in rallycross in his class, and really, really great driver in rallycross. But try and apply those same skills to the circuit, and all of a sudden there was gaping holes in the styles. So from my karting, I said, well, look, you know, I'll come and try and give you some tips and whatnot. So all the way through the 3 years while I was at uni, he was doing the Scottish Minis. And just as I finished uni, I'd been kind of more and more, I'd gone from being a supportive driver coach going, well, maybe try this. And you're doing great, but let's not try and, you know, door people all the time. To by the 3rd year, I was kind of just going, it's wrong there. You're braking way too early there. You know, you're all over the place. And he was going, well, if you're so bloody quick, right? Show me.
Get in.
So I said, fine, yeah, I will. So I hired a car for the last round in 2015.
Right.
Did the last round of that, and yeah, I think in my first weekend I kind of outqualified my dad by half a dozen places. I was just in the top 10, and yeah, went on to kind of win the. Did I win the like newcomers cup in one of the races? I can't remember, but did quite well. And kind of my dad went, yeah. So maybe you were. Maybe I should have been listening to you all that time. So
And you're sitting there just like,
yeah. It was like one of those,
thank you.
yeah, perfect. Told you so kind of moments, but trying to keep the smug look off my face as we drove
Yeah,
home, as he had this frown.
trying not to grin.
Yeah.
Annoyed.
And then that was it. So the next year, I said, well, let's do a whole season. So that first year in 2016, again, my dad was racing while I was racing, both racing in the same team. Thankfully, we only met on track once or twice. We
Right.
managed to keep out of keeping our own little kind of spheres, but
In your own little battles.
yeah, but yeah, at the end of that season, my dad again kind of said, "Well, look, I'll hang up my helmet, and
Oh.
we'll just we'll just focus on kind of you at the minute. So, but yeah, that first year in Scottish Minis was quite a learning curve. You can imagine you go from karts to right now I'm in, like you say, I've got a roof. I'm front wheel drive for one, and then I'm on one of the windiest, tightest, undulating tracks in the country. So yeah, there was you had to kind of just take your brain out to go around Knockhill fast in a
I think
Scottish Mini.
everyone has to take their brain
Yeah,
out
yeah.
to go around
So
Knockhill.
yeah, if you try and think too much, you'll go slow. You'll go slower the more you think. So just don't. But yeah, it was a great little championship with some great drivers. You know, we'll go on to it, but the likes of Dalgleish, Tanner, Chapman, these
Yeah.
people that you see in the JCWs of years, last year, the year before, even going a few years back, Kyle Reid was in the JCWs. He'd started, when I joined the grid, he was, him and Tanner were the ones that were dooring each other and kind of fighting for the championship in Scottish Minis. So, yeah, you can see where all these people that people know for maybe JCWs and British Minis actually started back in the Scottish series, where, like I say, you learn a lot of racecraft up at Knockhill there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and obviously the circuit, runs both ways. So it's people think, oh, it's only at one circuit. I was like, no, it's not.
Well, back then it was just one direction.
Oh, was it really? Was it
Yeah,
one way? Because I remember later on you did. It was like Anglesey and other.
yes. So they'd always do one race kind of an away round, and then and then in more recent years, I think after I moved on to the British Minis, they started doing alternating. So of the 7 rounds, they would do 3 clockwise, 3 anti-clockwise, and then an away round.
Okay.
And then I think this year they're doing like a tour of the nation. So they've done Scotland, they've done Anglesey, they've gone over to Ireland, Kirkus.
Oh, Kyrgyzstan.
Kirkistan.
Yeah.
Kirkistan. Yeah, something like
That's
that.
where,
And
Kenny Atchison and Martin Donnelly and guys like that began.
right,
So,
yeah. I think they're there this weekend for their first round. But yeah, so when I did it, but it was just 6 rounds of clockwise at Knockhill and then 1 away round. So yeah, it did get, and that's that was really the kind of driving force for us to move on, because, like I say, there was people there that did a lot of years just doing Knockhill, and it made sense because it was really affordable to do Scottish Mini. It still is, in fact. If anybody asks, unless they live very far down south, what's a good way to get in a race, and I'd be saying, well, have a look at this, because the cars, you can build a car really cheap, or just buy a kind of pre-built one. Quite fairly cheap. I say fairly cheap in the realms of motorsport. It's cheap, and then I think Knockhill you could get like a season pass for testing, and the season pass for testing was hundreds of pounds, so maybe £500 or £800. Well, that was like 7 or 8 test days. Where now, if you go and book a test day or a track day at anywhere in the UK, it's a couple of £100 just for the one day. So you start going, well, here we go. This is where you can get really affordable racing. And you can kind of do it on a fairly limited budget. So, but yeah, the big problem for us was you're going around the same track. So people got really good at that one track, and they found a setup that worked at that one track, and that was it. And don't get me wrong, it takes a lot of skill to perfect a track, but it does make it really difficult as a newcomer to go, right, okay, well, how do I get that good? Well, I need to do 5 years like they've done, so that I can be at their level, right? It takes a lot of kind of work to get up the front. So whenever we went and did an away round, all of a sudden I'd go from fighting for the top 5 to, I think in my first year, round 3 or round 4 was at Donington. I never raced Donington before. We turned up. I went out in quali kind of thing, and I'll come round if I can be in the top half a dozen I'll be doing well. Came around P1. Oh, that can't be right.
Really?
I thought, well, maybe everyone else is just warming the tires, and they'll kind of turn it on. I'll go round and round and round, and eventually I kind of come in and I go, like, how far up the road am I? And you're comfortable, So I just sat there. Thought, "Ah, this is," and
Wow.
that's then where Donington, I think I came second, and then with the reverse grid, I got like a top 5, from like kind of 8th or 10th on the grid, and then it was at that point we went, hey, it just shows, when we bring it away from Knockhill and there's a bit of kind of, right, give us a bit of driver feedback. What's the car doing? Can you give us a bit of kind of setup guidance? Where some of the drivers up in Knockhill would just be told, there's your setup, kind of crack on. All of a sudden, those skills that I'd kind of honed in karting of trying to give that driver feedback, trying to learn a new track, kind of came into their own. And I thought, oh, hang on, I've got something here,
Yeah.
I found an edge, and yeah, like it was still really competitive. It wasn't. There was still, like I say, the likes of Kyle Reid, Joe Tanner, them boys know how to pedal, so they were right up there. But it kind of made me think, well, hang on, there's something about going these away rounds,
Yeah.
and that was the same. So we get to the next year. Next year was Rockingham, while Rockingham was still a kind of a racetrack, and
Yeah.
again, all of a sudden I'm up on the podium, getting kind of, top 3s. And all of a sudden, like the whole grid from the predicted kind of your normal top 10 at Knockhill, it was just like a roll of the dice, totally shuffled it. Hey, I like this. I like this kind of, there's a new challenge there.
Yeah.
Who can learn the track fastest, who can find the setup quickest. There's not just who can be fastest out on track, but who can be fastest in all the other aspects as well.
I mean,
And
it's good it's good that you've touched on that, because that ties in nicely with the question that I saw from Dave Cock. Good evening, Dave. You put a couple of questions in. We'll come to them both later. One that did come up was saying, and it's with regards to the setup and things like that. It says, do you find that the engineering studies that you did help with your car setup? Does it? I mean, I'm sure others have done similar qualifications, but do you think that gives you an edge when it comes to these
maybe,
rounds?
I don't know, if I could clone myself and not go off to university and do that, but I don't know, because right from karting, you're taught how to give feedback. In fact, I remember, like any new driver, it's a skill in itself to be able to give driver feedback. And there's drivers out there that probably don't know anything about vehicle mechanics, but come in and they can tell you the rear end step in here, I'm under rotating there, I'm pushing on here, and they'll leave it to the engineers to say, right, we can fix that with a bit of ride height or a bit of camber or whatever it is. And that works really well, but yeah, when you kind of in karting, that's where you learn those skills of being able to give that bit of feedback and to digest those frustrations while you're out on track and convert them to something you can tell someone and make an improvement in. I remember when I was in cadets, the first team I was in, Rory ran it. It was Racecraft, actually, was the name of the team. A great little team, and Rory was really good at kind of trying to get feedback out of you and teaching you, right. So I'd come in, how's the kart? Oh, good, I guess. Is it the best it could be? I don't know. I guess so. Like that, that doesn't. But you don't know what you're looking for. So
Sure.
talk you through. Right, turn one. Are you making the apex? What about this? Are you ever having to catch the cart? What about that? And talk you through. And actually, now I think about it, yeah, you're right. Actually, I do have a problem. I don't have any front end. It turns out I didn't know. I was saying it was all right. I was wrong.
Yeah,
And then
it wasn't. Yeah.
it goes from kind of drawing it out of you to you coming in as a driver quite confidently and saying, this is what's wrong. Let's change that. The difference I've got is normally I come in and say, this is what's wrong. I think we want camber because I'm not rolling over. I'm rolling too much onto the shoulder. And I think that's why it's snapping mid corner or whatever it is, and that kind of helps me have those discussions with the engineer to kind of talk about, well, should we do camber? Should we do it this way or that way? But I know drivers who, have done kind of arts degrees or, left school and that was that for education. And they can still have those conversations. So I come at it from a different way, but kind of probably end up at the same point.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. And thank you, Dave, for the
That
question.
was a good question.
Excuse me. He's got another question which is going to come to in a minute, and one from Kales as well, which we're going to feed into it in just a moment. Just on the Scottish Championship, that was 2016. You back for 2017, and obviously there was progression there again. 2018, back for a third season. Turned out to be quite a decent year because I could find some results on that one, which was good. And obviously 6 of the 7 rounds were at Knockhill. We touched on Anglesey. Now, Joseph Logue spoke about this last week. Anglesey is a long way from anywhere. It's a long way from Wales, even by Wales standards. But you had I don't know if you remember, but you had a good weekend there, and I do vaguely remember hearing about this.
I remember this one because this was my first win in a car.
First car.
So 3 long years, and I'd always been at the sharp end. And in fact, it was my main competitor that weekend was Robbie Dalglish.
Okay.
And it had rained in this race, and I was second row, and Robbie was on pole or second. And kind of first lap, there was a bit of tussle, and all of a sudden I kind of popped out in the lead with a bit of a gap. And I thought, oh, here we go, right? So I get my head down, I start kind of just focus on, I hadn't done Anglesey in the wet at this point, so I'm just trying to learn the track a bit. Right, here we go. And I'm thinking, well, I can see Robbie in my mirrors, and Robbie's a good driver, so I'm thinking, right, at what point is he going to start like closing in on me when he's been able to, so much in the wet, you see the guy in front do something and you think, oh, that looks good. And you're able to kind of both use your feedback and watch their car for their car's feedback to go, right, does the wide line work? Does the tight line work? And I thought, right, at some point he's going to start closing in. But we lap, and I'm going, actually, if anything, I'm starting to pull away here. So by the end of the race, I think I've got like a 9-second lead, and I crossed the line. And that was it. I was like, oh, I've won. Normally you get onto a last lap when you're leading and you think, well, right, they're right behind me. I'm going to have to defend. I'm going to have to do this. I kind of started my last lap and thought, just don't do anything stupid. It's so easy to kind of get so focused on what you're about to do and win a race that you forget to do the final lap. Your mind's already away and you outbrake yourself and you go wide and you don't get your win. So I was thinking, right, just like every other lap, come on, just don't let the nerves get to you.
Yeah. And
then that was it, crossed the line, and I pulled into the pits and kind of celebrated with the family and the team and got up on the podium and the commentator says, and Dominic with his maiden win in the Scottish Minis, and kind of people look at me. I think it was I can't remember, John Duncan, and I can't remember, and Robbie, and they go, "Is this your first win? That can't be right." No. I've been on the podium a lot. I've been there second, third, newcomer cup, all that, but never, and it confused a few people. But it was.
It's quite nice though that they were surprised.
Yes, it was. I was like,
it seems something.
Obviously, you thought
you must have won before, surely.
Yeah, you think I'm better than I am, guys, but thanks. I'll take that. That's.
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, guys, I've won loads. Don't worry about it. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, fantastic. I mean, and it's a cool place to go racing. I mean, I've just seen a couple of comments. You've got Kales Cole lives out in Ireland, and she said it's her closest UK track, which I suppose it is, isn't it? And Dave Cox again, he said that I live in Wales and it's quicker to get to Croft.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. Like they say, any further and you end up in the sea, and you're right out. And it's just not easy to get to, but it's a great track. If anyone gets a chance to race,
I was up the way about 10 years ago, and I pulled in just to have a quick look at it, and I went, "Oh, I'd love to have a go around here." And believe it or not, it is possible. We kept going northwest from there. We got for a lighthouse. We're like, that would be.
But no, cool. It's the only track in the UK where you can say, right, it's got its own version of the corkscrew. as you come down that hill through
Mm.
there. You know, people talk about kind of going Laguna Seca and oh, isn't that great? Get that in Wales. You know, never mind going all the way to America. Although it might be quicker to get to America. But
By the
yeah,
sounds of it, it probably
yeah.
is. Yeah, yeah. We've got Diffan Evans, evening Diffan. He says, "I live in West Wales, and it's nearly quicker to go to Donington." Yeah, come on, Wales, sort your roads out. Yeah, but I mean, it's a brilliant. And again, we had Joseph Loke, and he said that I think it was turn two. He said he loves it because if you get it wrong, you're getting wet. And I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, great to get the first win there, and hang on, let's have a quick look. We've got more questions from Kale as well. I'm going to come to Kale's in a minute. Was it? I've got here that you took 5th overall that year, and obviously the third year, 5th overall, and were you starting to think about moving on up into the GB?
Well, basically at that point we did the Anglesey round, and I think on the drive home we said, "Hang on, right? We do Donington and put it on pole. We do Rockingham and have a sweep of podiums. We go to Anglesey and we win. Is there not something in this? You know, should
Yeah,
we not? You know, we've done 3 years of Scottish Minis. We see that unless you're going to do a lot of years at Knockhill, it's really difficult to kind of compete and break into that kind of constant podium finishes. So
yeah.
that's where we kind of said, well, let's have a look at this British Minis, but
I guess like nothing
always
against Knockhill, but let's avoid Knockhill.
yeah. Knockhill's great, but you
Yeah.
know you can have too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
So it was one of those where we kind of said, well, let's have a look at this British Minis, but up at Knockhill, you know, the talk is, well, it's quite a lot of money more to go do British Minis, especially you know, you've got people racing at Knockhill in the Scottish Minis where Knockhill is south for them. They've got a 2-hour drive south to get to Knockhill. So the idea of going, oh, I've got to race at Brands Hatch. I think Robbie's one of them where Robbie Dalgleish, it was a 9-hour journey every time they went to Brands Hatch or Snetterton. And we did Brands Hatch twice every year and Snetterton. We always did Brands Hatch or Snetterton twice. So there was 3 rounds a year where they had to drive 9 hours there, 9 hours. So like, you can imagine 5 p.m. on a Sunday, you're packed down, you've had a really exhausting day racing. And then they go, right, okay, if we set off now, we'll get home for 5 a.m.
Wow. I mean, because I know Joe is originally from Aberdeen, and I know Hannah was working up there.
Yeah.
And I've been to Aberdeen quite a lot, and yeah, it's a long way from anywhere.
Yeah.
And then when you get to somewhere, you're still a long way from, even Croft, So I can see how they would have struggled.
I live right up in the northeast, right? So when I tell people how far up I am, they're like, wow, that's really far north. And I keep thinking, well, actually, it's kind of in the middle, if anything. Technically, really, I should be in the Midlands of the Isle because I can do 5 hours south and get to Brands Hatch. I can do another 5 hours north and get to Aberdeen. So actually, I'm not that far off the middle in that sense.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
realize how far south I am.
Yes,
because I'm sort of slap bang between sort of London and Bristol basically. But
yeah.
But and I guess taking on you've obviously spotted that there's potential for you to do well in the on the other tracks in the UK. But before we talk about stepping up into the GB, I want to bring in, where are we? Kale's Cole. She had a question here. Says, in terms of stepping up, she says, what would be your best advice to someone like her at a point where she needs to move up the ladder, but the next step is going into big budget seasons? They're a family-run team, and they're absolutely brilliant. I'm pretty familiar with the Cole family, and they're trying to push the top. Says, I know sponsors are the main object of moving up, but any advice would be appreciated, as she knows how hard you've worked to get to where you are. I mean, is there anything, any little hints and tips that you might be able to
is the answer.
Rob a bank? No, don't do that.
It's pick winning lottery numbers is a good start. If you can't do that, yeah, it's like you say, kind of trying to get sponsorship. It's really tough. On reflection, I've realised a lot of my racing career, where I've been looking for sponsorship, has kind of always been during economic downturn, from the
Yeah,
2008 crash all the way through to now. You just kind of think we never really got a good boom where kind of you
yeah,
could
you just get the
turn
odd
to,
dip.
yeah, and then it's really tough to go to businesses and kind of present to them that the benefit they will get. I think my best advice would be, whenever you think you need sponsors, try and first build up um, kind of a small group of sponsors that have a passion for motorsport and have a kind of passion for getting involved,
Which I know
and
she does have.
get them
She's
on the journey early and kind of say, this is look how much fun this is now, but let's move together up that step. And if you can kind of bring them along with you, and everybody's kind of putting in that just a little bit extra as you move up, it becomes that bit easier. But it's really difficult, because what you do is you kind of say, well, if I move up, there's more publicity, so I can
yeah,
get the sponsors then. I can't get the sponsors now because I'm doing club racing, and it's really tough to kind of justify why that company should give you X amount of money. But what I'd say is just get them along to the race weekends. You know, a lot of people think it's about a sticker on a car, but there's so much more to kind of sponsorship and getting them along to the racetrack, getting the race car along to their building, to their offices, to do a kind of a bit of a show or whatever, whatever it is, to
yeah, like a
try
bit of
and get that.
promo and
Once someone with a race car, you start to think, oh, hang on, wouldn't this be fun? What about a passenger day? Why don't I get out in sign up for a track day and put a passenger seat in the car, and all of a sudden you're giving someone a great experience, and
yeah.
it's not too much money. But so you can kind of do all this and just try and get them involved early, and then kind of bring them along for the ride, and
Yeah.
hopefully when you say, hey, let's go do that bigger thing, they don't go, no, you're all right, and
They'll
that
be like, yes, let's
yeah,
go.
they go, yeah, that's good. The best thing you can do is have a sponsor turn around and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we did that? And you went, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
If you could just facilitate this, that would be great, and it's
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah,
I know everyone does this. Even, in our paddock, people go, what about this? What about that? How do you do this? And you're always trying to kind of find out how you could get another sponsor on board, or how you could improve your your offerings in terms of what you can provide, and how you can do that. But it's really tough. It is really tough. It's People understand football. How many companies have a box at their local football ground, and
yeah,
they're happy to spend thousands of pounds there to go watch a bit of football. And you think, well, if you come and spend that same amount of money with me, I can give you that same hospitality and everything, but give you that passenger ride, or do something. I
just
always
the extras.
say, it's like, uh, imagine what you'd pay if you just pay that much for a box, for a bit of hospitality. Imagine if during the half time you could go down and listen in while they got the team talk, and
Yeah,
then actually for the last 10 minutes you get subbed on, and you have kind of get a feel for what it's like to play out on that pitch, and all that. You'd go, I'd give anything to do that. And you go, well, you can
yeah.
kind of do that with motorsport.
That's
Get
that's
behind the scenes in the garage, see how it all works, and then get a ride out in the car, and see what it's like from the driver's side. And
yeah.
I think it's one of the few sports where you can actually get a lot more involved
And you
than,
can immerse someone in it. Yeah,
yeah. And I think that's where people kind of probably don't quite appreciate the benefits of kind of motorsport, and how involved you can get as sponsors and supporters. So yeah, push that, and hopefully people
yeah.
like it
That's
and
brilliant,
get on
brilliant.
board.
I do love that football analogy because yeah, that's true. And Chaos has just said thank you very much for that. And I did see that she gave her mum a passenger ride. I forget what car it was in, but the
Mm,
footage is absolute gold. It's
yeah.
absolutely brilliant.
Oh
There's a
yeah.
few bleeps in there because her mum's not loving it, but it's absolutely superb. But yeah, Chaos is big thumbs up for that. Okay, very quick look. Let's talk about cost, which we're going to come on to now, actually, because you moved into the keeper class. Excuse
Mm.
me. 2019. Obviously, you've given the reasons why and what you were thinking about things like that. I mean, you said that there wasn't too much difference between the Scottish Minis and the GB one. I mean, so I guess did that make it a bit easier than perhaps it would have been, to make the transition because the car was pretty similar.
Yeah, the main thing was slicks. I'd never raced on slicks in a car, so that feel was really different. But we went down and did the British with Jerry with Performance Tech, in that he'd ran me in the Scottish minis, and we'd kind of said to him at the end of that season, "Well, Jerry, we're thinking about going off and doing British minis. We want to go and experience some new tracks." And he kind of went, "Well, I've been actually thinking the same. I wasn't that keen on doing another season of just Scottish minis." I said, "Well, if you're up for it, we'll go and try and do British minis together. We'll learn the car together. We'll do all." So, all right, yeah, let's give it a go. And that was it. So we went down to, you know, I think we did our first test day at Croft, and got the car, put it on slicks, went out there, and yeah, the whole feel was totally different, and we had to work really hard because the guys didn't know anything about the car, how to set up a car for a track that wasn't Knock Hill, and how do you get the best out of a British Mini. And then I was also trying to learn the same. So that first season, what we said was, well, look, we'll just go down there. That first season is the learning year. Let's just give it a go, And them first few rounds were tough, and we kind of did a lot of learning. But very quickly, we're like, hang on, we're getting there now, and that first season, Robbie Dalgleish had gone down to do British Minis kind of the year before.
Yeah.
The year before or the year before that. So he'd got a couple of years under his belt. And it was the championship was Robbie and Toby Goodman.
Okay.
And they did kind of what Rosberg and Hamilton did in the Mercedes in F1, in that you could guarantee that two of the steps on the podium would be filled with them at every race, and then there was just a kind of a spare step for someone else.
Yeah.
And it just rotated.
It.
And so the championship came down to, right, they're about 100 points clear of everyone in the championship. So we'll just see who wins out of Robbie and Toby. And then it was a battle for third. And as the season went on, we went, oh, hang on, we're getting closer and closer here. So then by the time we got to the final round, we were right on them. And yeah, got that third overall and rookie cup, or the overall rookie win. And really that was a big surprise to everyone, including us. We really thought, look, we're going to go down there and we're just going to have to see how it goes, because it's going to be a big learning curve, because we're not going with a team who know the British Minis, or we're going with a new team, but we know how to race a British Mini. So it's we were kind of blind on both aspects. So, but it was a great year in terms of learning it, and just kind of at that level, the minis weren't on like Toca package or anything like that at that point. So it was still quite a high level of club racing, but still kind of at that kind of club racing level. And it was at the time where, well, you'd finish the day, and you'd say, right, well, let's have a beer and work on the car. And everyone was working on the car, and just you'd order some takeaway, and then you'd sit in the awning and have your takeaway and have a few beers, and right, okay, well, let's get off to bed. We've got an early morning tomorrow, and that was a really kind of laid back and really good fun. It's something.
A great way to go racing. What a great way to go racing that is, just with your mates. And
I think that's what a lot of racing is. Once you get up to a certain level, it gets very professional. You get these big teams with kind of a structure to them. You have data engineers and tire people and the technicians, and then you get this kind of organogram. But for most people, what racing is an excuse to you and your mates to go get a bit of an adrenaline rush and then have a few beers and a kebab on the night and have a laugh and then get up the next day and go and race again. And
I'll do it all
it's
again. Yeah.
I will say, obviously, drinking reasonably, so
I get that out there.
not the
Yeah.
next day.
No one's getting levered. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously,
you're not doing a wild
no
night.
one's passed out in the awning. It's not. No.
Yeah, but a couple of beers and then you go. It's just
Yeah.
but it's really good laugh, and and that's where, like I say, if you can get if you can get people involved who don't want to race themselves but want to enjoy motorsport, I think that's a great level to start getting them involved, because you go, kind of, this is great. This is, it's racing and friends and a laugh and
And just enjoying yourself.
yeah,
And
exactly, yeah.
which has got to be the start point for everything, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, just touch on that season. I mean, I've just got a few bits and pieces. I mean, you were running at the top end, apart from the front two who were off and over the hill. But things like a fastest lap at Croft, your home circuit, that's a nice little sort of nice little boost to get. And then, I mean, we've got to talk about the first win at Snetterton. I mean, it was in the. I think it was in the penultimate round, wasn't it? You were going for third, and there was like Lydia Walmsley, who was also come on here for a chat.
I think it was the final round.
A couple of years back. Yeah, was it the final race? I think it was the final round, I think it was the second or the penultimate race of the final, or something like that.
Yes, it was the first race of the weekend. So penultimate race of the season.
Yes, in the final round.
It was a wild weekend, actually, because Toby, in qualifying, rode his car off. He managed to hit it. I can't remember. He hit the tyre stack. You go through Agostini's and then there's the fast left. I think I remember he's nailed the tyre barrier there. That's on the inside. Bent like the whole front end of his car.
I was just going to say. I mean, he must have hit something, because there's a lot of runoff at Snetterton, isn't there? There's lots of field.
If you know what you're doing, you can find a tyre barrier at Snetterton. I'll tell you.
I could absolutely give it
a go. But no, so he's hit this, and the rules were that the car you start the weekend with, the race, the first proper event, the qualifying, whatever the car is, that's your car for the weekend, unless everyone in the pit lane, all the other drivers, sign off that you can change car.
Oh, okay.
So now you've got the top two that are kind of fiercely battling for the championship, and one of them, Robbie, has to sign off whether Toby can race. Because if you don't sign off on him using a spare car, then Robbie's won, and he's won by the case that Toby can
by default.
Yeah,
almost.
So there was this kind of, for the likes of me, Lydia was there, and so many others that I'll have to look at a result sheet, but we're all sat there kind of being told of Ria, who runs the championship and keeps everything well on track and proper. She's there going, right, you need to sign this. This is what you need to sign. This is what we need. Everyone needs to sign it. Right, that's going to be put there. Like, nope, we're not going to force anyone to sign it or not sign it. You've all got your own decision. And we're all sat there kind of thinking, well, I'm fine with it. Like, I can't beat him in the championship, even if he doesn't race this weekend.
Was everyone just kind of looking?
We're all looking at Robbie going, wonder what's going through his head right now. I wonder.
He's thinking
he'll sign it. Do you think he? Maybe not. What if he doesn't? Oh man, and we're all whispering. Right. Well, Robbie kind of gets up and goes, well, look, I don't want to win it by him not racing, so I'm going to sign it. And and I thought, well, that's that's good.
That's the best way, yeah.
Brilliant. But that then set it up for.
I would have done that. I'd have gone, no, give it.
Yeah. No, I'll just have the I'll just have the trophy now, thanks. Woohoo! But no, it was really great that he kind of signed that. Mainly because it then allowed me to get my first win in that we go into race one. Toby started near the back. In fact, I think because he was racing in a different car, he had to start dead last.
Right.
And you only get about 6 laps at Snetterton in those Coopers in a 12-minute race or whatever it was. So we set off. I'm third or something, and I get into the lead in the first lap. And then Robbie comes past me, and I'm just barely kind of keeping with Robbie. But what I can see in my mirror is Toby's coming through the pack like a man on a mission. So he's rinsing through. There's 15, 20 of us on the grid. And by the end of the first lap, he was up into the top 10. And then he's just picking them off. And I can see him closing us down. And I'm thinking, this spare car, he should have been racing this all year. Never mind his first car. This is the fast one. So on like the second to last lap, he comes by me, and I tag onto him, and I get pulled up onto the back of Robbie, and I'm kind of sat there thinking, well, I'm about to watch the championship get won or lost here. I'll take third. Yeah, I've got a big gap behind. I'm fine here. I don't want to get involved. And we go onto the back straight, and the two of them kind of go through the back last corner side by side on the back straight, kind of rubbing wheels and bumping into one another, and they bog each other. And I kind of just sail past them, 3 abreast down the back straight at Snetterton. And I come onto the last lap leading, and I'm thinking, bloody hell, I wasn't expecting this. So I'm kind of thinking, now them two are now battling, because really, whoever finishes second gets a good points lead going into the final race of the year.
Right.
So they're battling hard. And we do the whole last lap. Now, even though they're battling hard, they're still closing back up onto me. So we get into the last corner, obviously the second last corner at Snetterton. It's this really long right-hander. I can see Robbie's closing me in all the way around there. And I'm kind of half trying to watch the corner and also watching my mirrors as he's getting closer. It was like Jaws. There should have been the soundtrack from Jaws there. It was just...
Was it playing in your head?
I could see him. Oh, man. So I get in the corner, get in the last corner, down again, get a really good drive out. But Robbie just creeps up alongside. And if the straight at Snetterton, if the start-finish line was 100 metres further on, Robbie would have pipped me for the win. But I just had enough just to kind of cross the line ahead of Robbie. And that was it. I was so focused on them. All of a sudden, I was like, oh, hang on. I've won. Right. And then, obviously, this flood of from all this kind of adrenaline and kind of nervousness about and worry about getting overtaken to then kind of the joy of winning. And
wow.
I remember that well. So it was
brilliant.
And
I love it.
And then I think Lydia got her first win the very next race.
Yeah, the following. Well, because I was thinking, I mean, you won that and you thought, right, best of the rest, basically, behind these two.
Yeah.
And then Lydia comes and drills it and wins that race. And she was only behind you by a few points at the end, wasn't it? And you're thinking, have a day off.
Yeah. I really thought I won that race and I went, nice. That must have secured third. And then we crossed the finish line for the kind of the second race, a reverse grid. And I kind of look ahead and I see she's won. And I thought, oh, no. I wouldn't have what's happened with the points.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Fair play to her. That was a heck of a drive. I do remember that. I remember that was the first time Paul O'Neill, I think, went mental on the commentary. I think was it a BT or was it Thruxton? I can't remember, but she drove very well that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like third overall, your first season. Pretty good, isn't it? I mean, that's as you said, it was beyond what you were expecting. Obviously, nice way to end the season. Confidence booster going into the following year. Obviously, COVID came along, and obviously, we're all very glad that we've made it through. I know there's many thousands that didn't, and we need to give a huge thumbs up to everyone who kept that number down as low as it could. And obviously, racing became secondary for a while. But when there's a possibility that you could go back racing, obviously we know the BTCC seriously condensed season, absolutely manic for everyone. Was there a danger that you weren't going to be on the grid for whenever you went racing, or as you alluded to, had you got people on board that said?
No, we were kind of fortunate in that sense, in that we started that season and we kind of had commitment there. So even though it was a really weird season, we had the confidence that we were going to see the season out. Great. And the main thing that was a risk of whether we would make the season or not was, well, what happens if one of us gets COVID? You know, there was such strict kind of limits around, because we were involved with the TOCA package and whatnot. We'd kind of, it was lucky in that sense, in that we had got kind of signed off as part of the elite kind of sport category, because that was the first year we were involved with TOCA, before that, if we
Of course
hadn't
it was.
been,
It was Cleo's, wasn't it? And then
yeah.
yeah,
So if we hadn't been on top of that year, it would have been no, your season's over. Like so many club racing kind of championships. So
wow.
just because we were doing them guest rounds, those 3 rounds with Tuck, it was like, well, we've got to run our season. So it was really weird, those kind of journeys down on those quiet roads, and you kind of thinking we must look like pricks because there's a national lockdown and we're driving down the road in a motorhome. You know, there must have been people driving along going, "Who's this going on holiday?" You
Yeah,
know,
really.
but and you kind of there going, "Sorry, like
You
it's
want to
allowed,
put like
I
a sign
promise."
on the
You know,
side.
yeah. So
Racing drivers, we're allowed.
yeah, it was kind of so bizarre. But then even when you got to the race weekends, you know, I had to kind of prove you'd done tests and that you were negative. You'd then have to wear masks. There was the whole like social distancing, and literally you could be thrown out from that race weekend if any of that had been kind of if someone spotted you kind of taking your mask off to like eat where you know and you were in even if you were in your awning or in a truck, you had to basically you had to be in your motorhome with your family or you know, you had to have your mask on. There was no kind of ifs or buts about it. So strict.
Wow.
So yeah, everyone was there kind of like, oh, so it was really weird. You had all this concern and worry in the pit lane. It was actually quite nice to get out on track because
It was relaxing. Well, not quite, but
you
yeah.
know you were away from all that. You could put all of that behind you, and, like so much. You put your helmet on, and everything that's happening Monday to Friday outside of the car, that all kind of disappears. It becomes imaginary. So, and you can just race and you can do something that is the same as it's always been, kind of thing. Unless you end up in the gravel and then a marshal, you had to
And you-
give a thumbs up but stay back, kind of thing. But yeah, so it was an odd year, and then it looked like during the full lockdowns you couldn't race, if I remember rightly. It was only during the kind of as they started bringing us out of
like late
lockdown.
summer, wasn't it?
So yeah, so different areas. So sometimes we were in like a green area, we were in like a level 2 area or whatever. But then you were traveling into a lockdown area because that's where Donington is or that's where the track. So it's really weird. And even up until like the week of the race, you're going, well, there's talk that there's going to be another national lockdown. If that comes before Thursday, do we race? Do we not?
Do we
Like,
have to
how
go
does that
home?
work? Like, what happens? So really bizarre. But
Wow.
we ended up there was a lockdown that came at the end of 2020, like October time for like 6
Yeah.
weeks,
Yeah.
and it looked like that was the end of the season. And I was leading the championship at that point, and they were saying, "Well, if we have to call the championship early, that'll be the championship. 6 rounds. We didn't get the seventh. That'll be." I was thinking that's a weird way to win because I didn't know I was winning the championship at the last round. So we all just kind of packed up and drove home like normal. Um, And just as I started thinking, but I have won a championship, they then said, no, no, we're going to fit the last one in. In the second week of December, we're going to go to Donington. We're going to do the last round. So we
Wow.
go to Donington, and the track is the whole weekend we couldn't get heat in our tires. It was crazy that we were kind of racing in December, but you know that whole year was crazy. But that was also where we lost the championship. So we'd had a problem with the car, and we'd have a few problems with this car. We'd bought it and as a kind of second-hand race car from that championship, and we'd had a few kind of niggles with it. And we went into this last round, and we seemed to be really struggling with straight line speed, and we couldn't work it out. And yeah, in that weekend, we didn't qualify well because I was just hemorrhaging time down the back straight, down the main straight. We get into race one. We think that's all right, right? Bad quality, but you know we can do this. We struggle there. I'm struggling to kind of for a championship where I was always kind of in the mix. That year, I got wins, I got poles. I had some incidents and kind of inconsistencies, but we're always at the sharp end. And then all of a sudden, I'm struggling to kind of battle in top 8, and I'm going down the straight, and I'm defending, and people just kind of driving around the outside of me. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do? And then that was it. In race 2 at Donington, Harry Nunn drives past me. in the straight while I'm defending like I wasn't there. And I remember thinking, well, that's it. I had to finish ahead of him in this race to win. And he went on to overtake another person and finish third. And there I was kind of just plodding around, watching a championship drive away from me, thinking I can't do anything.
God.
And that was so brutal for all of us in the team. And we all thought we could go there and we could see out a championship and we could win it in our second year. You know, how good would that be? And for it to finish like that with literally in the last 3 laps of the season, got whisked away from us. So it was that was tough to take. So, but that was it that year. So we were in kind of COVID times, so you couldn't go out and socialize, you couldn't do anything. But that was the time when me and my dad said, right, we're not letting a dodgy car, because we found out what it was in the end. It was a dodgy fuel filter. A fuel pump. The insides had started to kind of fail because it was old, but it had been something that we thought, well, that's fine, because it probably been changed the year before, but when someone else owned it, and we hadn't checked it. So this year we said, right, we're building our own car from scratch to make sure that never happens again, kind of thing. So that was it. We bought a road car in December, and over the lockdowns and everything, we went in the garage and we stripped this car. We built a race car, and it was actually quite good with COVID in that way, because there was no distractions. We couldn't just, let's go to the pub, let's go do this, let's go do that. All you could do was finish work, go home, and go, I guess we'll spend another 5 hours building a race car tonight. So that was it. And we were meticulous. Like, we took this car to the point where the only things left on the chassis by the time we stripped the car, you'd have to grind it off. There was nothing left on. If it was bolted on or anything like that, it came off. And even we spent 5 nights, so probably a good 30, 40 hours, a whole week we spent just using a Dremel to go in all the nooks and crannies and grind out all the sealant and all the sound deadening material.
Right.
There must have been about 2-3 kilos of the stuff in this car, but we're going and we were being and we're like, right, we're going to do this proper. A beautiful car when we finished. And in fact, it's still on the grid. Frankie Taylor's got that car now in the Coopers. So you've got. I always look back in it. Yeah. Just look after that car, will you, Frankie? I was driver coach for him last year, and I would always had a soft spot for that car. Any time he was rubbing with someone, I was saying, "Oh no, Frankie, not the car. It's a nice car.
Just give him some space."
Yeah. But
he's like a little baby. Yeah.
But that was it. So we went into that kind of third season going, right, we know we've got the car, and if we can just, but this is the thing, that season, I lost out by 11 points, but I'd had DNFs. I'd had a lock up in round 1 and T-bone Charlie Mann to his utter horror, and we'd had another DNF somewhere along the line. So even though I'd won and got poles and fastest laps, I said, right, you know what? This is now a huge grid. 30 of us on the grid. Once it went on Tocker, the grid's ballooned. So
it exploded, yeah.
30 of us on the grid. You had Harry coming back to kind of try and retain his title. You had the likes of Matt Hammond, who were ex-champions, on the grid. So it was kind of this really competitive grid. And I thought, right, I'm going to make sure above anything else, I'm always at the sharp end, not letting DNFs get in the way. I'm going to focus on just consistency. If I get a race win, if I get wins, great. If I have to do a whole season of just getting second, that's fine by me. Because what I want now is that big pot that I was so close to last season.
So that was the actual sort of almost a plan going into the season, was to just stay in.
Just, if I'm not going to give away wins, but just don't chase round by round wins. Chase the championship, right? And
if you're sitting fourth, don't go nuts for third.
Exactly right. If you have to make a kamikaze lunge to win that race or get on the podium, just take a second. Where are my main competitors?
Think about it.
you know, that season, I led at Croft, my home race, gone on the last lap, overtook Nicky Taylor for the win. And then as we go through kind of the S's, we come to break into Sunny Inn, and all of a sudden I see Nicky coming. Like, I'd kind of half defended, thinking, well, he won't try, not in a Sunny Inn. He's not going to try anything wild. Well, here he is, putting his nose out. Well, he's never won a race at this point. He'd never won a Cooper, and he was desperate for a win. And I'd already seen that. I think Harry Matt Hammond had a DNF earlier in the day, so he was standing at the back, and Harry was kind of 10th or around there. So I knew that, look, whether I come first or second, it's good points. So when I saw Nicky coming down the inside like that, I was like, no, you're all right. I'm staying out the way of you.
Wow.
I'll let him go, tuck in, see if I can get him back into the complex. But if I can't, I'll take second. And that was always the mentality, because the season before, I'd have probably thought, nah, bugger off, kind of. And I'd have tried to close the door, and no doubt would have contacted, and both of us would have probably spun, and then that would have been 0 points across the board. And so that was the mindset. And I think even, I got asked kind of mid-season, you're leading the championship right now, but you haven't won a race yet. Is that going to be a problem? And I think I said something like, look, the championship will be worth 1,000 wins. So I'll happily not win another race all season if it means I can get that. Yeah. And that was it. So that was the mindset from day one in that season.
I think that's brilliant, because, and it comes from experience. When there's so many people that have learned. The one that I remember, I had Will Power on, IndyCar champion, Indy 500 winner, one of my favorite drivers. I think he's brilliant because he just annoys a lot of people, and I quite like that. And we were speaking at the end of the season. I said, look, you've come to 4th this year. Are you happy with it? And he said, yeah, we've won 3 races, but I've made some silly mistakes. So I might be doing something. I might have a look at changing my approach over the winter. And I went, oh, okay. And the following year, he went out. I think he won once.
Yeah.
But he went out and he won the championship just by doing that consistency. And I thought, when he won the championship, I thought, that's what he was talking about. It was already in his mind, and he was age 40 or 41 at the time when he did that. And so even at that age, you can still learn to, just, and it's great that you actually went into that season with that mindset. And as you mentioned, that incident going into Sunny and with Nicky Taylor, to have that thought process of, because I guess the initial reaction is defend, and then it's like, but in that split second, it's like, actually don't, because so and so's there, so and so's back there, so and so's there. Let him go.
And that's why it has to kind of be your mantra for the season, right? Because if you just go, well, look, it's so easy when you get out there, you go, no, I really want that win. Actually, all of a sudden, I'm now leading. Bugger off. I want this now. So you have to kind of ingrain it into yourself so much to just go, you know what? Nothing silly at any point. We're going to be really careful with the car. We're going to be meticulous with the prep. With everything on that side, we don't want a silly mechanical to get in the way. We don't want a silly mistake from me in qualifying or racing to ruin this. Let's big picture all the time. And but it that's tough in itself, like you say, because you kind of sometimes are thinking, I could have won that. You're like, what would have? I think about it, I could have probably made that move, but at the time, you just thought,
given the racer in you, you go out there and you want to win. It's always more difficult to just let someone go, I guess, when you're thinking, and you're there to win and win races, but it must be hard in the heat of the moment to look at the big picture and just say, okay. This is going against every fiber in your body, but let him go.
You kind of, I'm just kind of looking, going, right, where are my main competitors? There's all this noise. Whoever's winning today, there was so many winners that year, and that was the thing, right? There was so many good drivers on the grid. There was always going to be a different person that top step. It wasn't like that year of Toby Goodman and Robbie Dalglish where it's just one or the other. It was 20 races, and there could have been 15 different winners. It could have been anyone in the top 10 in that year could have won a race at any point. So it's just always, right, whoever's winning today, it's white noise. Who are my championship competitors and where did they finish? Where am I to them? You know, if I'm beating them, that's okay. I'm gaining a lead in the championship. And if the person that wins today ends up leapfrogging in the championship and becomes a main competitor, right, then I'll start focusing on them. But right now, they're having a great day. I'm going to have a great season, you know, and that's the kind of, but it was tough. It was tough at times to just go, nope, yeah. You know, even into the last round. So we go into that last round, and there's I think mathematically 4 of us in contention: me, Harry Nunn, Matt Hammond, and Louis Capozzoli. Now Louis kind of an outside chance. Mathematically, he can do it, but he has to have a really good weekend. And I think I went into that weekend leading, but like tied on points. Maybe it was really close. So I put it on pole, and I get 6 points for pole. And I thought, right, there's a little bit of breathing room. I just need 2 good races now, 3 good races, and that'll be it. Well, then Matt Hammond has a mechanical. His car won't start on the start-finish line. So all of a sudden, there's one down, right? Good. One less person to worry about. He's now going to have to start the races from the back. He might make some places, but I don't think he's going to be taking race wins. Race 2, Harry Nunn gets turned into the pit wall down the main straight, kind of racing hard, thinking, I'm chasing a championship here. This is where that risk comes in. Gets turned into the pit wall, kind of wrecks his car. I think they get it out for the next race, but for the final race, but he's standing from the back and his car's not great. You know, it's still a bit squiffy. All of a sudden, we go into the final race, and my race engineer, Mark, had got a little booklet, and he'd written down kind of, if they finish here, then Dom has to do this. And what I knew was that the only person that could beat me was Louis. And if he won the race and got fastest lap, I had to finish 3rd. If he only won, but didn't get fastest lap, I could finish 4th and take the championship.
Right.
And we go on the last lap. Louis 2nd, and I'm 3rd. And I'm thinking, this is fine. Tom Ovenden overtakes me, and I drop to 4th. And I go, it's all right. Louis still 2nd. And then into the last corner, Louis makes a move against Nelson King. People who have now won the championship, these guys were starting to show their pace back in my year, in their kind of first season. Makes a move on Nelson. They kind of have a bit of a argy-bargy through Luffield. And then I'm kind of thinking, oh no, I've left it too late. Because if Louis got fastest lap, I'll give this away again, you know.
Right.
And then just as we come into the kind of last corner, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm going to have to set up to try and undercut them as they're battling to try and make up that one place I need. So going in literally the last corner of the last lap at the end of the season, I'm still going, maybe I'll come out of this champion. Who knows? And then we come out there, and just as we come out, Nelson's eked ahead of Louis. Tom's coming around the other side of him. All of a sudden, Louis coming back to me in 3rd. So we're going towards the finish line, and that's when I kind of, oh, hang on. That means all I have to do is drive for this finish line, and that's it. Even if he's got fastest lap, I've done this.
And that was it. Right.
Yeah, there was this kind of 5 seconds arc around Woodcote, and then head towards the finish line where all the relief, the wave release. I don't think I'd realised just how much pressure I was and I put myself under.
Yeah.
Until that point, and all of a sudden, and my initial relief goes to then exultation, and then that's it, you know. And the explosion in the car as I'm kind of whooping and trying to keep the car going straight as I'm going wild in the car, trying not to crash. But that was it. Like, it was, you know, it was a wild year, but yeah, it was great celebrations. In fact, after a year later, Mark's done really well out of it. So he started with us at Scottish Minis, came through and did British Minis with us, won the championship with us. He went on to do data engineer for JCWs. Then he went on to do some data for touring cars and Italian F4. And now he's data engineer. Well, he was data engineer for the Iron Dames last year, doing well.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, if only my trajectory had been the same as Mark's, I'd be doing great. But he's done great out of it. So,
Wow,
but
fair
I think
play.
still, maybe the only championship win he's had as a data engineer in all them teams is with me.
Wow.
But what he said was that the year later, he said, you were so calm that weekend. You know, we'd on the night before, again, we're kind of all sat there having a beer, having a bit of takeaway. And he was like, you were just kind of laid back. You seemed, I wasn't. On the inside, I was a bag of nerves, but everybody else seemed calm. And it turns out a year later, he said, oh, I was a bag of nerves. Like,
I
I
bet everyone
sanity
was.
checked your car. Like, the amount of times I went back and double checked all the wheels were tight. Like 3 times while you were just on the dummy grid. I'll just go double check.
Even though
I
he
check
probably
all the
knew.
bolts, so I'll just double check and just. So he was really, but every time I talked to him, he was like, "Yeah, no, all good. It's all yeah." So we were all kind of pretending, putting on this facade of everything's fine. It's all under control.
What
On the
will be, will
inside, we were
be.
all kind of rattled. We were all thinking, "Oh man, we just get over the line. We're so close. Don't do a repeat of last year." You know, so there was. Yeah, that when we got back to the on and we're all there, it was fantastic. You know, we were jumping around like lunatics. It was great.
That's fantastic. I love that, and you know, you won the championship and stuff. But I mean, I did have some figures on that. It was where are we? Yeah, you had like 2 fastest laps, a pole, which was a lap record around the national circuit, at Silverstone. You only led 11 laps all year.
Yeah.
7 podiums, no wins.
Yeah.
Champion. That's how you do it. I mean, and there
Play
can't be
the
that
numbers.
many. There can't be that many champions that have gone through a whole season without winning a race. I keep thinking of Colin Turkington back in whatever year it was.
Yeah.
17, 18, whatever year that was. And he
Yeah.
only won 1 race. I remember going way back, there was like Keke Rosberg in about 80.
There was someone mentioned just today. Someone mentioned someone in touring cars has done it. I can't remember who they said though.
Hopefully have a think. Oh, that's good take a while, couldn't it?
Well,
yeah.
is there anyone watching that can remember? There's a touring car driver pretty confident has done it. If you can, 10 points if you can name them.
It wasn't Andrew Jordan. I don't think Plato did it because Plato never let anyone win if he didn't have to. But yeah, there's probably a few. I mean, there was obviously going back to the years where the class victories counted the same as the, you know, as an overall victory. So you had a different. Yeah, 2018 was Colin. That's right. But yeah, I mean, I remember like Frank Sittner won it, or it was someone like Phil Dowsett or Chris Hodgetts or someone, and they were in Class C. And they were finishing 15th every week, but they were beating everyone in their class and came second overall. And people went, "Hang on a minute,
where's that?" Yeah.
Showing my age, but yes, yeah, if someone can do that, that'd be great. But yeah, I mean, that's some amazing stats, and to have won the championship and all that, and I guess thereafter the obvious move was to the JCW if it could come together. Did that happen for? Hang on, what we got here? Dave Zeus, Cox, Chris Hodgetts, and John Cleland. Hey, there you go. Oh, Cleland.
How can anyone to be involved with?
How can anyone forget John Cleland? Yeah, he's a great bloke. We love John. I was supposed to see him recently, but he got waylaid. Anyway, yeah, thank you, Dave. That's good. So, yeah, I mean, was it not easy, but was it kind of were there things in place to move to the JCW when you did?
Yeah, well, it's that thing, right? It's that natural next step. So you're in the same kind of paddock some of the time, or you know, you're at least in the same championship umbrella. So it's quite an easy kind of progress to make. A lot of the Cooper teams also run JCW teams, and that's how we got involved with Graves, right? So they were running Max Coates and Brad Gravett.
Yeah,
and Max lives 40 minutes. In fact, just the other side of Croft. So, you know, I started racing at Warden Law the same year Max did. So we knew each other quite well. There's a photo of us both with bright blonde hair, both kind of tiny people going up and getting our trophies at Warden Law. So it's a great photo. It always brings me back down to earth. But the so we knew Max well, so we said, Max, so what's the crack, and what about this, what about that? Graves are there for the Cooper round, so we start talking to them. We talked to Jerry at Performance Second, said, well, look, we've done all right out of the Coopers. How do you fancy JCWs? And that's where kind of Jerry went, no, that's a different beast. That I'm not sure about that. So we said, oh, that's fine. So we went off and kind of talked around the paddock and kind of settled on Graves. And it was that year that they really kind of went, right, okay, let's really push with JCWs. And so we joined them for that first year. But it's also a huge step up in budget. So
yeah, which comes back to a question that Dave Cox asked earlier about the jump. And obviously, we're not going to ask for exact figures, but I do know I was told by a driver who's in the series this year, I won't say who, bumped into said driver last week, and they said that just the license is like 18 grand or something ridiculous, and that's before you've done anything carry. So,
yeah, that's just to get in the championship.
yeah,
it's tens of thousands of pounds just to say yes, I'm going to do the championship.
yeah, just for a bit of paper that says yes.
Yeah, so
Which is
you haven't,
great.
like you said, you haven't turned a wheel and already you've put down, what most would consider as a house deposit.
Yeah.
And you're going, what
I've got
what
a
do we
bit
do
of
now? Now we've got to find the rest of the money to carry on because we've now started. So
to make it happen.
it is a big step and it's a big commitment financially. So we were like, right, okay, well, we'll get a couple of test days in, but we were really limited on what we could do. So I think we did 2 test days. So really all of our practice was at the race weekends. We didn't really get a chance to kind of say, well, let's pre-season, let's go to each of the tracks and at least have a day testing at each track to see what a JCW was like around there. No, didn't have the budget for that. So
Jeez.
we were like, right, well, we'll just use this first year of JCW is a learning year. This is just an expensive way of doing test days, basically. But we're gonna learn to race them and get involved in everything else. So let's do that. So, and that's what we did. We did that first year just kind of as a learning year, and really the idea was if we could crack the top 10 by the end of the season, that would be great. That would be fantastic. And we managed to do that with some good results at Snetterton, and I think I got another 10th or 11th or something like that, like Brands Hatch. And we're like, right, great. We kind of ticked off that box. We broke the top 10. We were kind of in that mix. And yeah, right at the start of the season, by the time we'd kind of built up, our kind of championship position wasn't great. But by the end of that season, we were kind of on the cusp of the top 10. So we were, all right, we're where we want. And then last season was about, right, now let's kind of try and cement that. Let's try and get those podiums and be a front runner, and that was always a bit more budget, a bit more testing. Let's see if we can kind of push for some silverware. And it worked out last year. I think we'd have wanted a bit more. It looked really good at the start of the season. We looked really good for, I think in round 1, I got my first podium and we're like, there we go. Hey, that if we can just do this all season, great. We're really in the mix. But then we really struggled in the kind of middle part of last season. So although I think last season we came away with like 11 trophies with 2 or 3 kind of top 3 finishes and then lots of graduate cup wins kind of around there in the top 5, we didn't really have the results we wanted in a few places. So we've always said we'd do 3 years of JCWs, at least 3 years of JCWs. And really that 3rd year, we want to try and push for a championship. So we said, right, are we going to do the same again and just kind of rinse and repeat? Or are we going to make a change? And that's where we really thought about it and we said, right, like, let's just try something different. If we do the same thing, we might end up in that same place, close, but not quite there. Let's roll the dice. So that's when we kind of put the kind of signals out there that, look, we might want kind of rethink how we're doing our JCWs, and that's when we got in touch with kind of Accelerate and Justina, and then that went from there, and that's then how we are where we are now, where we're on the kind of doorstep of the third season, where we really want to start chasing for that, that overall championship, be a championship contender, and let's try that with Accelerate. And I think so far it's we've done a couple of test days, and the guys are great, the chemistry's great, and that's always a good start. If you got a good chemistry with the team, it always makes it much easier when, mainly when good days are good, doesn't matter. It's when it's tough. You want to be able to know that, you get on with the team well, and
Yes.
you can have those open conversations, and that's where you can really get progress, and that's where you can potentially, make that difference between being good and being the best, and that's what we need to try and push for this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the way you said that it's the bad days that define things. I mean, again, I think it was Colin that said that you win championships on your bad days, not your good ones. And obviously, with the people you work with, I mean, it just put me in mind. Name drop here. We had like Tommy Byrne came on here. That famous. The was it the greatest racing driver you've never heard of or something? Yeah. Irish bloke, absolutely brilliant. And he said that the team has got to be like your family, because all the way through, he knew he could drive a car, but because of his personality, he had conflicts with some people, and he knew the people that he could work with.
Yeah.
And when he got into F1, he just said they're all up their own backsides, and I couldn't deal with them, and that's why we struggled, basically, because the chemistry off the track wasn't there.
Like I said, you have to have that. You finish a day, you have a tough day, and you think, oh, right, it's all right. Let's grab a bite to eat, and we'll just put it behind us, and we'll have a laugh. We'll talk it through or whatever. You have to be able to. You can't go. How they say, in a good relationship, you should never go to bed angry with one another or whatever.
Yeah,
it's the same with like racing. You can't leave the track angry with the team or because what'll happen is it just sits on you. You just mull it over for weeks and weeks, and then you go to the next round, and it's not behind you. You now turn up to the next round thinking, I've still got an issue with you, kind of thing.
It's still
and
bubbling
then
away.
it seeds, and then it's really tough to then try and reverse that. So you've got to be, and that was a good thing with with Performance Tech, because we'd started up in Scotland with them, came down south. That was that really kind of family vibe that you felt like you were racing with friends, and also they run the team, And to be fair, it was the same with Graves. We moved to Graves, great family run team, Carl and Dave that run that, and it's a great atmosphere. But like I say, you kind of, at times you have to, and that's why that's why it's really tough when you do make those calls, because it's not like you're just kind of saying, oh, by the way, guys, I'm moving, and it's just like a business deal. You have to try and keep it professional, because that's what it is. But you kind of feel like, there is that kind of more emotional side to it, where you're like, well, we've been through highs and lows together, and you've got that kind of bond, and it's really tough to then have that conversation of, well, we're thinking about kind of moving on and changing things. It's not you, it's me, kind of, and all that. And it's so, and then because you're going to turn up next season, and they're going to be in the paddock, and you're going to see them, and it's like you don't want to ruin that kind of relationship, even if it's that kind of friendly relationship, to at least keep it friendly, and that's always the fine art when you kind of moving teams and stuff like that, because it's people you've spent a lot of time with, all those weekends. It is tough.
Yeah, and from what I can gather, the guys at Graves, obviously Graves have stepped back from the series, excuse me, for this year, obviously with the current climate the way it is, which is fair enough, which obviously makes it easier. But I'm sure they all seem to be wishing you well. They know that you want to go racing.
Yeah,
I think they're pretty chuffed that you've gone to Accelerate with Justina and everyone else. Yeah. And it's a heck of a setup, isn't it?
That did make it a lot easier when I kind of phoned and said, hey Carl, well, and he said, well, actually that makes this conversation easier, because I was going to tell you that. I was a few days away from phoning you to say, look, Dom, I think it's best you start looking because we're looking at kind of pulling out. So it was like, oh, well, right, that's a
Okay
lot
then.
easier. That makes that, well, yeah, right.
Yeah,
And and that's the thing, Graves are doing really well in the Porsches, and they've got a
yeah,
fantastic setup for the Coopers and whatnot. And like you said, they've kind of went, you know what, it's really tough at the minute with kind of the climate as it is. Let's focus on where we're seeing great results, and kind of put more effort into those, put more resource into those. And yeah, I think it's a great move for them.
yeah, absolutely, and it just kind of feels right at the moment,
Mm.
doesn't it? Very good. You mentioned Porsches there. I've just seen a comment again from Chaos Cole. Says, have you ever thought about competing in the Porsche series like Max, or have you got your eyes set on other series, which also ties into what Diffan Evans has said, is the BTC the next step? Without giving too much away, of course.
Right. Well,
If
all
there's
of
anything
them
to give away.
sound great. It's Porsches, touring cars, anything. The real thing is that, yeah, I love racing. The hurdle to get over that we've already talked about is, how do you get that budget? How do you get that kind of the money to go to a team and say, hey, let's go race. So there is a small step from JCWs to the Caymans, another step to Carreras, a really big step to touring cars.
Yes.
So those would be great, but there has to be some good fortune in my
Yeah,
near future if I'm gonna be able to kind of commit to any of them. So
yeah. Things need to align.
who knows? Who knows? Like I say, maybe those lottery tickets will come in. I should start putting the lottery on if I want to try and win it. But
See, we all do that, don't we? Say, if I win the lottery, and then say, "What? Have you played it?" No, not for
no,
years.
no, 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 no. But if I did win, it's
But
like those scam emails you get where you're like, I've won a competition. I don't remember entering a competition. Yeah. Well, I want to win the lottery, but without having to enter the lottery. So, um,
easy.
but yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
How hard could it be?
guaranteed. Bound to
Yeah.
happen.
Good.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, well, what have we got here? A question from Mark Perks, which we'll come to in a second. I mean, you touched on budgets and finances and stuff. I mean, it is tough out there, isn't it? And I was actually on another podcast and I got slated for it because I said the BTCC was far from perfect. How very dare I? Um, and it turned into me pushing an agenda for TCI UK, which I'm not at all. So I don't understand what that is. Anyway, basically, all I said was that at the moment, the BTCC is very expensive, which we're all aware of. Costs are going up, hybrid, and everything else. And I said, just with the way the world is, it might be best if people are scraping around trying to get a big budget and struggling, they might want to go to TCI UK or Porsches or something
Hmm.
like that. Which I think is right. And I got slated for that anyway. But I mean, I mean, you've been at like the sharper end of it than us outside the ropes watching it. I mean, is it more difficult, say, this year than it was a couple of years ago or pre-COVID, just to try and get budgets because costs are going up? I was just wondering if you'd seen anything around the paddock or anything like that. That
I think so. I think you can just see it by, like personally, yes, it's tougher, definitely. But also, the way you can tell is that other people are not just people who would normally think, oh, they're happy to keep doing it. All of a sudden, they're going, actually, I'm taking a step back. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that.
just
And
guys
you know,
like Dan Lloyd and Jack Butel
yeah,
and even like Dexter's gone and doing GT, isn't he, and things like
yeah,
that. So
because
yeah,
it's also you're going right. Okay, I might be able to get that budget together, but to what end? And that's where I
yeah,
think a few drivers are saying, well, actually, for a smaller budget, I can go do something like Porsches or going to GTs. All right, actually, now there's a new challenge there, right? So, and I can go
yeah.
off and do that. And so it is. It's a great series, the British touring cars, for sure.
Of course,
You
yeah,
can't
yeah.
deny that.
And
But like you
still
say,
got the draw, hasn't it? It's still
yeah,
that's where you want to be,
yeah.
and rightly so.
But it comes at at a cost, and that's always what you've got to balance up is, can I get on the grid and be competitive? There's no point scraping around just to be a number on the grid. You have to be
Yeah,
able to go on that grid and think, right, we're gonna do something here. At some point, I want to chase that championship.
Yeah.
Whether it's a couple of years plan, or you're just going to you're going to go in there with a big budget, do a load of testing, and hit it in one or whatever. You have to have a strategy. If you can't just keep going, well, it's a lot of money and I'm just filling the grid, and I'm just scraping enough together. People have to kind of step back and go, well, maybe I'd actually be more competitive going and enjoy it more, right?
Yeah.
As drivers, you go, do I really want to be mid-grid all the time, right? Is the
just for the sake of being there almost.
Yeah, if I just kind of went, actually, let's go do something where the budget's a bit lower. Actually, now that difference in budget allows me to go do that testing, allows me to kind of commit more to a championship drive, and I can get that sounds like a project I can get excited about, right? That's what I want to go do. So if you've got the sponsors that are willing to go with you, then that's great. So it's and everyone will have a different reason, but ultimately when things get more costly and it gets harder, that's normally when people go, let's just have a rethink. Let's take a chance when everything's rosy and you've got lots of money coming in. Yeah, it's happy just to just sign us on again, and just keep going. And I think that's really what's happened is that a lot of people have kind of went, hang on, let's just a timeout. Let's just rethink.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, there's that shiny thing over in the corner of my eye there. That looks fun. Let's go do
and
that.
I can enjoy the racing and challenge for that thing.
Yeah.
Which basically, that's what I mean. In saying about costs, that's what I've been saying for ages, and people have had to go at me saying, you hate the BTCC." Yes, I hate it. I hate the BTCC. I've been following it for 37 years now, and I've decided to start hating it. Anyway, my little rant over. But I think the Porsches are going to be great to look at this year because they've got a really, really, really strong grid, as we've seen. Just quickly about saying enjoying the racing. I mean, I'm not going to give anything away. I've been having a few emails with like Rory Butcher in the last few weeks, and he was basically saying, look, BTCC is still great, but he's got the family and he's got costs are going up. And he's going to go and do other things, which people might have seen on his socials, and he's getting paid for it. And he's just, it's a different challenge. It's money coming in. And that's his reason for stepping back. Whereas someone might be budget, someone else might be, like
I said, there's probably 1,000 different reasons, but it's 1,000 different scenarios. But what it normally is it's when the budgets are tight that people take that chance to let's just have a rethink, and those 1,000 reasons start to outweigh the other issues, and that's when you get that bit of upheaval where you get lots of people going here, there, and everywhere. But to be fair, I think you've still got a really great grid in the touring cars,
Definitely.
So I'm not concerned about that at all, and I'm sure Alan Gow and those guys are more than happy with how this season's kind of looking, and
they've got a short-term plan to keep it together.
And so I think it's definitely not going anywhere, and it's always going to be a pinnacle, right? It's just you get these kind of ebbs and flows, right? You get years where it dwindles or shrinks, and then you get years where it all of a sudden it booms, and you roll with it.
That's the other thing that was aimed at me, saying, because I said at the moment the scales are tilting slightly, because it's been BTCC here and TCR here for a while, and it's just starting to do that, just a little bit. And someone said, "Oh, so you're saying the BTC is going to die?" No,
hopefully TCR will just rise, and then we'll have even more motorsport at a high level. Wouldn't that be great? It's
wouldn't that be lovely? But anyway, just want to clear that. But it's true. Yeah, the budget is. I mean, the cash is king in the world, not just in motorsport. So it's just where it is. Right. Okay. Quickly zipping on very quickly here. Someone did say, now, you probably can't give too much away here. But this is what we all love. We all love what a car looks like. We all love a livery, don't we? We all love what's it going to look like. Someone said, Mark Perks. Evening, Mark, again. Dom, will you be running the same number and orange livery? We love the orange livery. Or can you not say just yet? There's no problem if you can't.
I can't say just yet, but that's not because it's embargoed and it's all secretive. It's not quite designed yet. So
Okay.
So it probably will be a lot of orange. I like the orange. We've always ran orange.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that was how you caught my eye on the grid. I was like, oh, orange.
yeah,
That's bright.
it's yeah, it's done me well. So it's always stood out, and yeah, I think whatever the design looks like, the design brief is very much around the lots of orange, and then this and that and what. So I think we can say lots of orange, but the design to be confirmed. So
Excellent. Looking forward to that one. Looking forward to that one coming out. Okay, we're always trying to wind down. I mean, bloody, almost 2 hours, which is great.
yeah, sorry, I've been waffling on.
No, it's great. I mean, we always say, oh, hour and a half. Never stick to it. It's always we always go on. It's great. We're here to talk motorsport,
Yeah.
and so is everyone else. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, which is good stuff. Well, we always have some fun questions. Obviously, you follow the token package and the touring cars, etc. Is there anything that outside that you follow closely, just as a fan, whether it be F1 or IndyCar or supercars or whatever it might be?
F1 because it's easy to watch, right? Lots of
Yeah.
it on TV. You can get,
And we've got to chuck a word in here for McLaren and your other half. She loves
yeah,
McLaren.
yeah. You can
Yeah,
see it. In
yeah.
fact,
Got to mention
I think,
McLaren. I'd have been.
hang on, if I get this right, Ricardo's helmet, Lando's helmet, my
Yeah,
helmet in the middle, so that at least I'm represented in this room. Then
that's the
McLaren there.
podium, isn't
We
it?
try and keep it contained. If Nikki had her way, I think just about every room in the house would be papaya, and
That wall would be
so
orange.
we're like,
wouldn't
right,
it?
let's try and keep it. Yeah. We'll get talked about by the neighbors if they keep looking in, and there's just McLaren stuff everywhere. But no, yeah. So we watch F1, of course, IndyCar as well, NASCAR. I struggle to watch NASCAR because I don't have Viaplay at my house. So normally it's pop around my parents. They've got it,
Right.
so watch the
It's
NASCAR
brilliant.
there.
Love American motorsport.
I love NASCAR. So many people kind of the classic. Well, it's just turning left, and you just
Yeah.
like, yeah, but this okay. There's only left-hand turns, but there's a lot of sports. Athletics tracks are just left-hand turns, and you watch that. There's a lot of skill. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot going on there in that race.
And also, they're doing the best part of 200 miles an hour, that
Yeah.
far from each other and that far from a concrete wall on
Yeah,
a track
and
that's like
it's
that.
like you start explaining to people, well, that they're drafting, that they're trying to pull air off one another to destabilize one another. They're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. The managing tires, they've got someone in their ears telling you who's around. You're like, it's chaos.
Yeah.
And yet they're doing this at, like you said, 200 mile an hour, and I think it's great. It's a totally different type. You watch F1, great. You watch NASCAR, it's the difference between watching rugby and football. Yeah, they're both ball sports, but it's totally different ends of the scale. And to be able to
I
watch both,
always
it's great.
use the line, it's like comparing a lasagna to a cheesecake. I mean,
Yeah,
they're both essentially food, but completely different.
yeah.
And I
So,
mean, but IndyCar, though, I mean, having been to the 500 in 2022, if they did, the American overblown pomp and ceremony and stuff, they do it for the Grand Prix in Miami, etc., and it just doesn't work. But at the Indy 500, it's just brilliant. It's the best day you'll ever have in motorsport.
well, that's because it's built on that, right? That's
Yeah.
why it's the same with F1 with Monaco. Like Monaco as a track actually isn't a great track for F1. It's good for qualifying, bit of thrill, but there's other much better tracks out there, and yet Monaco has that kind of that glamour, that everything around it that makes it the Monaco weekend, that makes it, and it's the same with IndyCar with
And
the Indy
all
500.
the drivers love it, Monaco,
Yeah.
don't they? They all love it,
Yeah,
because of what it is. So,
but
yeah,
but also WEC. That's the other one. Love a bit of WEC. The
getting well into
challenge with
that
that
last couple of
is
years.
that I can never sit down and go, right, I'll just watch a 12-hour race. If I
Difficult.
do that, either I'm going to be late for work the next morning, or I'm going to get told off because I've sat on the sofa for 12 hours on a Sunday, and it doesn't go down well. So,
No.
but I always, like I say, Mark now works, and so whatever team he works for each year, I'm like, right, they're my team this year. That's who I want to. Few people I know from karting now, kind of racing that. Always keep an eye on them. Yeah, love work.
Yeah, absolutely. And similar question. I mean, is there anything that you'd like to try if there was one that you could do? I mean, would it be F1 or IndyCar or NASCAR?
something in
Struggle.
endurance. I think I'd end up going WEC because I love endurance racing. I've done an endurance. I've done a 24-hour kart race a couple of times. Won that. In fact, that was BUKC. That was my karting
Oh,
university kart.
okay.
Won the 24-hour BUKC. That was great.
That's cool. That's cool.
I think I only slept like 4 hours in that day, and I think I did 6 hours in the cart in total because a few other people had like blisters and someone cracked a rib because it was brutal. And I was like, well, I'll take your stint, right? And that was it. So it was great. I love that. And then I've done a 8 hour or 6 hour K race at
Oh yeah.
Brands. Um, and I love that. I love an endurance race. And it's something I think that works for me because I'm very mechanically kind of gentle on the car. Always never hard on the brakes, never hard on the gearbox. And I always like to be kind of pride myself on my consistency. I can always lap
Mm.
to lap quite consistent. I think that I think if I could turn my hand to that. I think quite well the
Yeah.
endurance. So, and I've always kind of enjoyed it as well. So, if I could do anything, it would be something in endurance. But yeah, I need to
That's
find a
cool.
GT car or a
Yeah.
LMP car that someone who's kind of got lying about that'd be willing for me to drive. But
Yeah. Someone to sit in the
it's
back
cool.
garden that you can hop into. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, cool. That's good stuff. Okay. Let's see. Okay. What's your favourite circuit to drive on? That GP.
uh, always go well at Snetterton.
Yeah, I've got that in the notes. You always give to yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't like Snetterton. It's a bit boring, but because I do well there, I quite like it. But really, then you've got like Croft's a great track to drive.
Underrated.
Um, hmm?
Really underrated.
Yes, yeah.
Fast.
One that's not underrated that I think just about every driver that drives it says that's a great track. Brands Hatch Grand Prix Loop.
Yep, you've just kept up
That's
a run of about 125 interviewees that have
yeah,
said they love Brands Hatch GP.
yeah.
It's
So
something else, isn't it?
if I could do a season where it just went Snetterton, Croft, Brands GP on repeat, I'd 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 sign up to that. I'd find the budget no matter what. I'd go rob a bank if that was a championship that I could sign up for. Whatever it took, that would suit me down to the ground.
Just seeing that Kyle's cold. She's not a fan of Snetterton. She's like, no, not Snet. Oh dear, there's a
It's
story there, isn't there?
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
story behind that.
I get trophies and pots there. It suits me. I like it.
Yeah, happy days. Um, this is always a good one. Given that you're on the Toka package, is there a BTCC? Because obviously that's the progression at the moment. Is there a BTCC driver on the grid that you, or recently off the grid or whatever, that you looked up to or have looked up to above anyone else? I mean, whether it be Turkington for consistency or Ash for what he's doing or Plato for Plato.
Yeah.
Is there anyone that when you were going through the Coopers and everything, I was looking at the touring cars thinking him?
Well, you know what? Now that I'm in the Tocker package, I don't get to watch any of the touring cars.
No, I suppose not. Yeah,
I watch less of the touring cars now than 6 years ago when I wasn't involved in it because
really.
you're so busy with your own racing that day. You sat down with your guys going through your data, and someone says, "Oh, by the way, the touring car race is on." You're like, you quickly look at a TV in the truck, watch the first lap, then go, "Anyway, right, where were we?" Yeah, and that's it. So,
Right.
now I should have practiced this, right? I'm now part of Accelerator.
Tom Ingram.
Yeah, I should have picked one of them, right? But
Chilton.
I'd say Ronan, but then he's going to be insufferable at all the Cooper rounds when he starts to rinse me for it. But he's came from JCWs and done touring cars, so I like
Yeah.
that. I like that, you know.
And he's done very well to get in and do what he's done.
Yeah, exactly right. So, or like you say, Ash, like what a driver. You know, you just look at that. Any motorsport fan or any driver, even if you're not a big fan of Ash, you go, that's impressive. Like what he's done is you know, he amazing driver. So you've got to go kudos to him. And then yeah, like you said, actually Plato was the one that I was going to say. I just like Plato for being Plato. You
Yeah.
know, there's something about him. There's an honest, just look. I'm here to race, and you know, if the cameras don't like what I say, if other drivers, I don't care. I'm gonna do my thing,
Yeah.
and I like that. I like you know, it's tough to be a great racing driver, but to kind of be a good person, I think as well, where you just
Yeah.
whatever it is, you just you are who you are, or you're really nice out of the car and you're really friendly, or whatever, whatever it is. Jake Hill, I know Jake and his dad really nice. Every time I see them in the paddock, they're always kind of willing to kind of chat, and they're really friendly. So that
That's
kind of
good,
thing,
guys.
I like that. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone that I kind of look up to, but there's stories there, there's people there that I think they're who if I do watch a race, they're the ones I'm looking out for to go, oh, go on.
Yeah,
Aidan Moffat, from Scottish Minis.
yeah,
So got to kind of represent on that one as well. So yeah, there's a few of them there that get a bit more focus.
yeah. No, that's good. Good stuff. Diplomatic, like
Yeah.
it. Okay, the final question that I asked to everyone, and this is actually a bit easier for people that haven't been racing for years, because obviously the guys who raced in the 70s and stuff, they've got like a big long list coming up. I mean, you've raced against some really great drivers in their own right through the different series, right from like John Duncan through Ashley Morris, who's gone on to do rallying, raced against her.
Mm.
But you got like Lydia Wormsley, you got like Robbie, you got Brad Gravitt and Joe Tanner and Nelson King, Sam Weller and Will Orton, Dan Zelas, obviously is champion, and Ethan Hamilton, Max Bird's gone on to GTs, and James Gornall, Callum Newsham, Jack Mitchell's gone on, Ronan Pearson, Max Coates. I mean, there's lots of great guys that you've raced against and with and things like that. I mean, is there any that, as a driver on track, you think, oh, he's just got something a bit more than everyone else, or he's just a bit different, or I don't want to use the word better because that's not fair, but is there anyone when you were racing that you thought, crikey, he or she is really good?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, you reeled off a list of there. If you go far enough back, like you look at anybody that races now, you can normally find someone right back in karting that they kind of who've gone, like the likes of everyone's got like a kind of a class of that kind of 5-year period. And when you were karting, there's always like an F1 and now an F1 driver who was karting at that time. And the likelihood is you shared a grid with them, right? So you look back, like my one is George Russell, shared cadets with George Russell. I think Dan Zelos, he shared it with Lando Norris, right? And
Yeah, he
you go
mentioned it.
through
Yeah.
this, and
And he
everyone
also
kind of
mentioned someone like, I forget who it was. Someone mentioned that they shared the grid with Oscar Piastri at some point,
yeah.
and they said they didn't even know who he was, and now they kind of do.
Well, this is the thing. Back then, they're just another Carter. You know, no one's got a crystal ball and go, oh, they're going to be an F1. There's a few. I think Max Verstappen, even when he was in karting, people went, he'll be an F1 driver one day, kind of thing.
Even like Terry Fullerton said it. He said, I could see when he was 7, he was going to make it to F1. You
know. So a few, but generally, you can't really tell then, right? But no, I think the one that always sticks out in my mind, and it's as much where you are in your kind of racing career when you kind of come across that person, but the one that always I used to think, oh, no, how am I gonna beat them, was Kyle Reid in whether it was in the Scottish minis or in the British minis when we overlapped. Every time I tried to overtake Kyle, he would always somehow find a way to put. Considering people talk about minis being bigger than they used to, Kyle's mini, I don't know what he fed it, but it must have been 3 times the width of anyone. Anytime you try to overtake him, there it was, right? And
it was like overtaking a Hummer.
Yeah, he always had an ability to know what you were thinking, where you wanted to put your car, and to always put his car in the most awkward position, and yet still be quick. And you just think, oh, come on, Kyle, give us a break. I'm half a second a lap quicker than you. I need to find a way. And yet, you would never be able to I'd never be able to find a good way past him. You had to get up I had to get up quite early to beat Kyle. So yeah, Kyle was always the one where, if you say what's the one driver who you just thought, do I have to race them? Can't I just that would be that. You come across great racing drivers all the time, but I think there's some that just how they are and how you are just means that whenever you come across them on track, it's always a really kind of difficult challenge.
Yeah.
There's other drivers that really quick, but you just always seem to be able to straight past, or
Yeah.
they come up on you, and you always think, oh, I can always defend against them. I always kind of, but yeah. So yeah, Kyle was always the one that I used to think, oh, man, can't I just be ahead of him, and then we'll just,
Yeah. Can I just start in front and see how
oh
we go?
yeah, or can he not keep winning when I'm trying to win? That would be really helpful. But yeah.
Yeah, fair one. That was a good comment here from Mike Cole, actually, who's Kale's his father. He says, he said that Ben Barnacut was one I thought we'd see in F1, but yeah, he's just taken
Yeah.
a half win at
Is he
Sebring, isn't
not?
he, this last weekend?
Yeah.
Cool.
He
Big
races.
fan of Ben.
He's in Lexus now.
Yeah, Lexus,
In
the
yeah.
Vassar
So
Sullivan Lexus.
so that a prime example. In racecraft, the first team I joined, me and Ben were teammates. So, and then yeah, he's gone off, and yeah, he'll be
Wow.
doing Le Mans and WEC and all that. And
Yeah.
but yeah, he was a great driver. There's some great drivers that I know from karting though that you just said, "Why they're going to be F1 one day," and they don't race now because they
Right.
never had the budget. There's some British champions and European champions who go to kind of move on to F4 and go, I can't afford F4,
Well,
and that's the start and end of their career. And you think if
I
only
think
they'd got that opportunity, they'd have been, you know, they'd have definitely contended for an F1 seat, if not, went on to become an F1 world champion. And you just think how much potential has been lost there, but
I
it's the
think
way of the world.
one that springs to mind very quickly is Jamie Caroline was one. He was just going off
Yeah.
and winning all kinds of stuff, and we thought, right, he's heading for the top, and all of a sudden he's like, I haven't got the budget and stuff.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
commentary now, but
Brutal.
yeah,
Absolutely brutal. But
but
there you go.
it's the world we live in.
Yeah.
No, cool. I mean, I've just seen a very lovely comment, which is a lovely way to end it. Very, very nice comment from Thomas Parker. Thank you, Thomas. He just said, lovely chat, guys. Really enjoyed it. And I think that pretty much sums it up. It's been great speaking with you, Dom. I'm very glad that we finally got this together.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it.
But no, thank you for coming on and giving us all the insights from your journey so far. And we obviously wish you all the very best in your first season with Accelerate, and obviously everyone at Accelerate, we wish well as well. And yeah, we'll be keeping an eye on you.
No, and thanks for having me on, Rich. It's been great, and sorry it took 2 hours. I'll
No,
I could
brilliant.
go on for another 2 hours, but I think probably a midnight session is probably a bit too much. So
No, it's absolutely great. No, as I always say, we never apologise for talking about motorsport at length.
Yeah.
That's why we're here. It's all good. But thank you everyone for tuning in. There's been plenty of you. Do tune into the Hard Compound Thursday night, 8:30. We're announcing next week's chat, and it's with a legend, and I'm well excited for it. But tune in
I'm
tomorrow
excited
night.
to hear who this is. This is going to be good, I think.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait. I'll be very nervous. But anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for your continued support and for your comments and input and everything. And again, Dom, thank you very much, mate. And I'm sure I'll see you at a circuit somewhere in the next few weeks or months.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks, Rich, and thanks everyone else who listened in and asked questions. It was great. Thanks.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon.